people who were clearly not the favorite child, what was the moment that gave it away? I have terrible self-esteem. I'm a perfectionist. I get uncomfortable talking about my emotions, and I constantly try to please the people in my life now. The short version is this. I'm the oldest of three children. My parents are huge sports people and the type who force their kids into intense athletic training so they can live vicariously through them. I was never good at sports. The first time I tried out for a team, I got cut. After that, my parents simply moved on to my siblings and essentially ignored me for the rest of my high school and college years. They ignored all of my achievements. They would leave home every weekend to travel around the country for my siblings' tournaments and leave me home alone. They often failed to mention that they even had an older child when talking to people they knew, which led to some extremely awkward moments when I met acquaintances who had no idea I existed. They did not attend my college graduation because they were too busy traveling for my siblings' sports-related activities. I was literally told that a tournament was more important than my graduation. I spent my graduation day completely alone while my roommates and friends celebrated with their families. Can you imagine missing your first child's college graduation for sports? After college, I moved abroad and never looked back. I only talked to them about once a month, if that. I did not even get a happy Thanksgiving this week or anything at all. I think my moving far away has just made it easier for them to fully pretend that I do not exist. I have lived here for almost 7 years, and they have never once made an attempt to visit, despite the fact that my mother has several relatives who are pilots and can essentially fly for free on their flight plans. I am like a ghost to my family. It feels bad. Edit. To answer some of the more common questions. I'm really close with my siblings now. I was ignored, but they had to deal with all the pressure and sports-related nonsense my parents forced on them, and they have an equally strained relationship with our parents. They both eventually quit their sports in fits of rage and still hold a lot of resentment over it. We talk all the time, and they are honestly the best. I lived in Spain for about 5 years and then moved to Italy afterward. As it turns out, when your parents ignore you, it makes it really easy to just jet off and live your best life without any obligations back home holding you down. For that, I am actually thankful. I am married to an awesome guy who has an amazing, loving family. I genuinely love my in-laws. I might be the only person on the planet who enjoys hanging out with their mother-in-law. I have also surrounded myself with friends who function as my family. Family is who you choose it to be, and that cannot be overstated. I did try to confront my parents about all of this. It did not go well. I was essentially cursed out and told that it was all my fault. Oh well. I still struggle with those feelings sometimes, but I have mostly moved on. It does not get me down the way it used to. Enough people in my life have validated that my parents are, in fact, Jack-A's after meeting them and seeing the situation firsthand, which has helped a lot when it comes to moving forward. It is what it is. Story 2. I am the middle child between two sisters, each approximately 1 year apart from me. My mother always preferred girls to boys, and because of this, she treated me as if I were always in the wrong. This went so far that even when she caught my sisters in the act of doing something wrong, I was often the one who was punished instead. This eventually culminated in what I like to refer to as being kicked out of the house when I was 10 years old. In essence, she called one of her ex-husbands, not my father, and the divorce had been particularly nasty, and told him that if he did not come and take me in, she was going to put me into a boys' home. As a result, this man uprooted his life from several states away and took me in for a few months. After that, I was bounced from house to house until I eventually landed in a semi-permanent residence with one of my aunts. Story 3. I was the mistake of two stupid teenagers. My biological father ran away to another country in Arabia, and my biological mother had me and then dumped me on my grandmother. My mother later married an abusive a-hole and had 3 other children with him, all between 2 and 5 years younger than me. My grandmother was a widow who worked as a cleaner her entire life. She had very little, but she tried her best. We were extremely poor until she passed away from a heart attack when I was 8 years old. After that, I rejoined my mother and was promptly cast as the black sheep. My mother's husband owned a small but successful company, and they lived in a large, mansion-like house with a pool. My half-siblings had the latest toys, participated in all kinds of after-school activities, and each had their own rooms. I, on the other hand, was allowed to sleep in a sleeping bag in the lounge. From the age of 13, I had to look for a job and use all of my earnings to pay board. I was not allowed to have any friends over or do much of anything at all. I had to attend the local school while my siblings went to some fancy, prestigious school. I mostly spent my days in the library, reading, studying, and participating in free activities. I also volunteered a lot, as that was more enjoyable than working, and they could not tell me not to do it, since they were good Christians. My daily routine was rigid and exhausting. I would wake up at 6 in the morning, do my chores, complete my paper route or other odd jobs, exercise and eat fruit for breakfast. Then I would go to school, followed by work, extracurricular free activities, or more time in the library until 8 in the evening. After that, I would go home, finish whatever chores I had left, eat leftovers, and then go to sleep. Because of this routine, I ended up doing very well at school and received multiple offers for full rides through college. My guidance counselor, several teachers, and the families of close friends knew about my situation and helped me a great deal by taking me along for holidays, assisting me with getting organized for college, and supporting me in ways my own family never did. In the end, I landed a good job, started a successful business, and am now far ahead of any of my siblings. Throughout most of my youth, my siblings treated me like complete trash and largely ignored me, something that was probably encouraged by my mother and stepfather. When the global financial crisis hit, it completely destroyed my stepfather's business, and the entire family became dirt poor. Ironically, my own business prospered during the global financial crisis, and I now make enough money that I do not have to work if I do not want to. It is not particularly surprising how everyone suddenly remembers that you are family when they are in a crisis, after ignoring you for most of your life. I am currently 33 years old and very happy with myself. I do not really have a family in my eyes, and the experiences I have had have made it difficult for me to open up to anyone completely or allow myself to be vulnerable, which makes relationships challenging for me. However, these same experiences taught me discipline, self-reliance, independence, and drive, all of which have helped me tremendously in my business and career, as well as in maintaining my physical health. I have a very small group of close, tight-knit friends, and that is enough for me. I am in therapy, trying to learn how to open up more, and I am hopeful that one day I will have a family of my own. Story 4. My mother was abusive toward me, but thankfully never toward my brother. When it came to getting attention from her, I only ever knew the negative kind, and I thought it was strange when we were around the rest of the family, and she acted nice toward me, because all I had ever known was her beating me. As I got older, I started looking for affection anywhere I could find it, which was usually from older boys. Whenever she saw anyone treating me well, she did whatever she could to ruin it. After years of abuse from her, I finally decided to cut ties with her, and I have been incredibly happy for the past 5 years. Edit. For those of you asking, sadly, my brother and I no longer have a relationship. I was 18 when I moved out and my mother changed. Without me there to beat on, he saw a very different side of her. I later moved back to Oregon and my brother and I became close again very quickly. One of the main reasons for this was my daughter. As I mentioned earlier, I looked for affection wherever I could get it, and as a result of my actions, I became a teen mother. He helped me a lot with my oldest child and genuinely wanted to be involved in her life. After a few years, we both managed to forgive our mother, but in very different ways. He forgave her and essentially started a new relationship with her. I forgave her and cut ties completely. It was honestly one of the best and most exhilarating things I have ever done. Cutting ties with her caused tension between my brother and me, and he felt that I was overreacting. Because of this, we eventually lost touch. I tried to reach out to him over the years, but he continued to bring up having a relationship with her and told me it was not fair to keep her grandchildren away from her. As a result, we no longer speak. Story 5. This one still pisses me off. I was quiet, shy, and did not bother anybody. My brother, on the other hand, was a complete a-hole and was always trying to get into fights with me. I would be sitting there doing my homework, and he would come up behind me and try to slam my head into the table. He would tackle me without any provocation and beat the crap out of me for no reason at all. I tried everything I could to get away from him. If my parents were going to the store, I would go too, but if he hopped in the car, I would get out. This sometimes led to comical situations where I would get in, then he would get in, so I would get out, and then he would get out. And it would repeat like that, but that is getting off topic. Anyway, they gave him all the good stuff. They fixed up his room and gave him an air conditioner. While you could literally see the 2x4s in my room, and I had no air conditioner at all. Before that, we shared a bedroom, and when it finally came time to separate us, he got to keep all the electronics. He had a radio, game consoles, and a television. I had nothing for a few months. My parents acted like it was my fault, but he started so many fights that they eventually decided they could not take it anymore. Their solution was to tell us not to talk to each other, something we have now done for the last 16 years. He has mental health problems. My dad realizes it, but my mom pretends it does not exist and shuts down anyone who tries to say otherwise. Story 6. I was born shortly after World War II to a war-broken father and a clueless mother who tried hard to raise a son but was misguided by Dr. Spock and the parenting practices that were prevalent at the time. As a result, corporal punishment was liberally applied, even when I was an infant, and I grew into a resentful, hostile toddler. Then my sister was born. Sugar and spice and everything nice. What a crock. It took me more than 50 years to finally understand that I had no real support or goodwill from my parents or my sister. Ultimately, I cut all ties with them. My parents are now deceased, and my sister has been completely out of my life for years. I do not miss them, and I am grateful for the few years I have left to examine and maybe repair some of the damage they did to me. Edit. The corporal punishment largely came from my grandparents and the prevailing child-rearing wisdom of the time. Dr. Spock, who was not a Vulcan, focused in part on discouraging what were seen as attention-seeking behaviors. Edit 2. Come on, folks. I only mention Spock because his book and the surrounding cultural practices were essentially all anyone had for raising children back then. Seen against that background, my mother's actions, although damaging in many ways, are understandable. The same applies to my father's need to see new life continue beyond the horrors and death he witnessed. Story 7. It has not really made a huge impact on my life, I guess, except that I cannot understand how people enjoy spending time with their families. I am definitely the least favorite, mostly because I am the most outspoken. I am not willing to just accept whatever comes out of my dad's mouth as the truth. My sister is constantly making posts on Facebook about how thankful she is that my parents do things for her. At the same time, my dad once told a room full of psychologists that he did not love her, because in his words, how could you love that? So, I'm not really sure why she is so eager to kiss A. My dad regularly tells me that my political views pain him and that they are disappointing. I also did not baptize my kids because my husband and I decided to let them make that decision on their own. Apparently, that is basically the same as condemning them to hell. My brother is considerably younger than my sister and me, and he is the favorite. When I was 16 or 17, my dad tried to have me and my friends arrested for smoking weed. Meanwhile, my brother drops out of college and completely wrecks his chances of joining the army. And my parents have no problem with that at all. Story 8, I got over it. So, did my younger brother. My parents had 4 children. A twin boy and girl, twin brother and twin sister, then me, a boy, and then another boy. They gave the eldest pair special treatment throughout our entire childhood. One memorable time, when my younger brother and I had been naughty, my mother told us that we had been accidents, whereas the twins were planned. I told her, "You cannot say that to kids." I was maybe 10 at the time, and that I would remember it when I grew up. 30 years later, I brought it up again, and she insisted it had never happened. But my brother remembers it too. When it came to presents, the twins always received something special. Even though we were a fairly poor family, there was always money for the twins. On their birthday, twin brother received a brand new dragster bike. Expensive at the time. I got a girl's bike and secondhand, which my dad convinced me was just as good as a boy's bike. Well, okay, my younger brother received an old bike with 2 flat tires and no chain. When he asked his dad to fix it for him on his birthday, Dad shouted at him and told him to be patient. He could not ride his own bike on his own birthday. It was not until the next day that Dad finally fixed it. Who gives a child a broken toy? At Christmas, twin brother received a special microscope. My brother and I got smaller, cheaper ones. When we went camping, twin brother received an expensive, high-quality sleeping bag. We were given cheap ones. When I was in my teens, I asked my dad why he treated us differently from the twins. He explained that in the old days, the first son would inherit everything, while any others would go into the army or the ministry. This was called primogeniture. According to him, the first son deserved special treatment. I asked my mother why twin sister had 13 pairs of shoes while I had only 1. Seriously, I had a single pair of school shoes. Otherwise, I went barefoot. She explained that when she was a little girl, she lived on a farm, and the boys received everything while the girls got nothing. I do not believe this. And that she was determined to make up for it with her own daughter. When it came to clothes, twin brother, as the eldest, always had to get new clothes. Fair enough. What else could you do? Twin sister got new clothes as well. I received hand-me-downs and only rarely some new clothes. The youngest boy got new clothes too, because by then, they were too old for the twins. So, the only one in the family who consistently received second-hand clothes was me. When I was 12, I won a school prize. I topped the school in English and received a bursary. It was a $100 prize, which was a decent sum in the 70s. I decided to use it to buy a train set, so I asked my dad to drive me to the store, which he did. When we got back home, he said, "I've done something for you. Now you must do something for me," and demanded that I give him the transformer, the adjustable power box, from the set I had just purchased with my own money. It was brand new and really nice. He took it and gave it to twin brother, and then gave me twin brother's old one, which didn't work very well. This hurt so much at the time that I suppressed the memory. It was not until my younger brother and I were talking in our 40s that I remembered it, because he brought it up, and even he had thought it was unfair. This story was like that throughout our entire childhood. The twins were better than us and always deserved something special. Funnily enough, neither of them ever excelled at anything, whereas my younger brother and I did. Both of us gained entry into a selective high school which required being in the top 5% of the state. The twins did not. Before high school, all four of us walked to primary school together. Once high school started, the twins were driven to school every day because they supposedly couldn't take the bus. Twin brother was being bullied. Twin sister went along too, of course, because it made sense to take both. I was picked up from school once in my entire life. It was in about the 4th year of primary school. As I left, my mother was waiting at the school gate, first in line of all the mothers, looking proud. That was when I realized it was not about picking me up at all. It was about looking good in front of the other parents. One day when I was being picked up from school, I asked, What are you doing here? My mother replied, I'm here to pick you up. I said, why? You've never picked me up before. And she never picked me up again after that. Not me, not my younger brother. Birthdays were always something special for the twins. They even had a 21st birthday party. My 17th birthday was completely forgotten. I waited for hours for a surprise, but nothing happened. I let it go for a week and then finally said, You forgot my birthday. My mother replied, No, we didn't. Really, something so important, even to a teenager, and I cannot even remember whether I had a proper birthday at all. I never got another one either, although the twins continued to have birthday celebrations up to 21. My youngest brother says his stopped at 15. When we were in our 20s and working, we still lived at home. Mom asked for 25% of our pay each week to cover food and groceries. Fair enough. It took me several years to realize that the only time Mom went shopping was just after I had gotten paid and returned home. When I asked her in the car if the others were paying board, silence was my answer. I later found out that I was the only one paying. Twin sister did not have to pay because, in her words, she's a girl and needs extra money for clothes, shoes, haircuts, makeup, etc. Twin brother was not paying, and youngest brother used to pay but eventually stopped. One time I was lying in bed, mostly asleep, when Mom had a visitor over. By this time, both my younger brother and I had gained entry into the selective high school. And I was getting excellent results. 3rd out of 124 in English, 5th out of 124 in math, and so on. The visitor mentioned to Mom that her daughter had just completed a course at a technical school, in cooking, I think. Mom replied, Oh, that's wonderful. None of my kids are any good at anything. I could not let that go. I got up, went out, and said, That's a terrible thing to say, and it's not true. The visitor looked abashed. She was a genuinely nice lady, but Mom just gave me the evil eye and did not say a word. Mom never believed in herself, and somehow, when she had children, she never believed in them either. I suppose it was an inferiority complex that extended to her own children. In his 40s, my younger brother asked twin brother if he had ever thought, it was unfair that he received special treatment from Mom and Dad. It wasn't unfair. I was the firstborn son, he said, referring to twin brother. And he genuinely believes it. So how did all of this affect us? We are in our 50s now. Twin brother is unmarried, has no money, no wife, no girlfriend, no children, no savings, and no education beyond high school. He has never had a girlfriend because he is terrible around women. Twin sister spent her entire life living with Mom. Yes, even into her 50s, having everything paid for by her. She occasionally held a job, but by the time she turned 50, she is 57 now. I'm not sure she had completed more than 4 years of work in her entire life. As a consequence, she never really grew up. She is unable to manage her finances. She applies for jobs for which she has no hope, fabricates her credentials, occasionally gets one, maybe one job, in 4 years, and then is fired in the first week for being incapable. She has no savings, has never been married, has no children, no boyfriend, and did not even complete high school. I, on the other hand, am married with 2 children. I own my own home, which is fully paid off. We have 0 debts, not even a credit card, and several years' worth of salary saved in the bank. I have been teaching for 15 years. My younger brother is also a teacher and owns his own home. He has been married several times. The ones our parents treated the best did not end up doing the best, and the ones they regarded the least achieved the most. My own children are treated equally. Story 9, I can never seem to do anything right, ever. It does not help that my mom never cared who I actually am as a person. She just made up a person in her head and was perpetually mad at me for not being that person. It is even more messed up because the person she made up was a wildly out-of-control teenager whom she wanted to use to get attention from everyone. This led to any little thing I ever did wrong being blown way out of proportion so that she could use it as an excuse to call everyone she knows and cry about how I was so out of control and how she just did not know what to do with me anymore. She also tried to involve multiple family members in betting money that I would be pregnant by 19, and she told my grandfather I was a club dancer when I moved out on my 18th birthday. I have done that in my life. Side note, my mother lived at home with her dad until she was almost 50. I moved out as soon as it was legal so I could stop being a financial burden on him. Joke's on her, though. I am 26 now, have been in a relationship with the same amazing man for going on 8 years, own my house. We bought a rundown mobile home and flipped it, now with no mortgage, have an amazing 1.5-year-old son, and, although late in the game, am on my way toward a degree in accounting. I was the first to walk at high school. Graduation in my family. First to go to college, 3.8 GPA. Lucky enough to be a stay-at-home parent while going to school. I am in a fair amount of debt from the renovation, but we will be able to pay it off, and I think I am doing very well, especially considering where I came from. Story 10. For years I assumed my brother was the favorite, but every time I confronted my father, he would just sweep the subject under the rug and we would move on. My brother was the best in his class and one of the best students at every school he attended. He was also very goofy looking, but no one dared touch him because he was always so angry. He would beat the hell out of anyone who did. Basically, a super genius Mad Max mix. My father would not hide his favoritism toward my brother. After telling that, there are two situations that come to mind. One day, I met a girl at the carnival in my city. We were talking a bit and came to the topic of my father, who was her teacher at the time. It turns out she did not believe he had another child because he only ever talked about my brother. So I had to prove it by showing her my ID. I felt a huge blow at the time. The second was when my father and I were fighting, and I brought up my brother and the unfair treatment between us. He replied, "We can't be guilty of being closer to some people." That phrase is true, and I snapped in anger when I heard it, but it also confirmed a lifelong theory I had, which was oddly satisfying and gave me a lighter view of the situation. Don't get me wrong, I still think it is a terrible thing to do to your kids, and even worse to put it into words to them, but in the end, it is true. So there is that. My mother thinks I am the most beautiful, so I have that going for me at least. Edit. How that affected me? I guess I used to have a hard time trusting people. Being lied to your entire life is kind of damaging. Also, my brother and I grew up as enemies, which was horrible for me because he beat the hell out of me my whole life, as both of my parents also did. It was a pretty violent home overall, but I forgave my parents in the situation. You can only give what you have. Story 11. It is very obvious that my significant other is not the favorite child of his parents. They favor his younger sister so much more. Her bedroom is twice the size of his and is decorated by a designer, while his furniture is IKEA and just whatever. She has 2 closets full of designer clothes while he dresses modestly. They now pay for her rent to live in the Upper East Side of Manhattan, while they refuse to help him with any bills whatsoever, calling it enabling when he asks for help. He is not a drug user or anything. It is just frustrating. At first, when I noticed this, I pointed it out jokingly, but I have realized it is truer and truer as the years have gone by. It has hurt his confidence a lot in things like school, sports, and now in the real world, finding jobs. It sucks. I feel like my parents did a good job of treating my brother and me equally, while his parents have clearly shown their love for her more. Story 12. I have 2 cousins who were always the favorites with my grandparents growing up. They would go to the ends of the earth to make them happy and would attend every little event and kindergarten concert. As for me, they could not even be bothered to show up to my birthday parties. In fact, we stopped having family parties when I was in the 3rd grade because they would say they would be there, then just would not show. Stuff like that really hurts when you are 9. There was also a lot of drama and intrigue because they did not like my parents. My mom received a 10-page letter in the mail from my grandma when I was a child, calling her a fat cow and a disappointment. She said I was not being raised right and would not amount to anything. My aunts and uncles liked to stir the pot as well and cause trouble. It was not just me who was hurt by them. Thankfully, I have great parents, so the main effect it had on me is that I am very emotionally detached from my extended family, as are my parents. Personally, I see them at Christmas most years, and that is fine with me. My grandpa likely has less than a year left to live and is now very senile. From the start of the whole saga, I have had absolutely no emotional reaction. I am not happy about what is going on, but it has had no impact on me. I felt bad for a while and felt as though I should feel something, but then thought, you reap what you sow. Story 13. As the second of 5, I was responsible for bringing up my 2 youngest siblings. From simply cuddling and dressing them, to making sure they were washed, fed, deloused, Head lice treatment would have eaten into my mother's drug money and taking the rap when they were in trouble. My older sibling, however, was given almost everything they wanted and allowed to visit friends and sleep over, whereas I had to be home for the kids. It has been difficult for all involved. The sibling below me was most severely neglected, as I was only 2 years older and did not have enough ability to parent them. My relationship with my youngest two siblings is particularly complicated, as I am their sister but also effectively their mother. Most frustratingly is my mother's inability to appreciate that she is not a parent to me or the younger two. The main effects have been our combined reluctance to have our own children. The baby of the family is now in their mid-20s and is bringing up a child of their own, with as little interaction with our mother as possible, whereas the rest of us have decided not to procreate yet. Personally, I feel like I have already done the child-rearing thing, so although I do get the occasional pang of broodiness, I cannot see myself looking into adopting or fostering anytime soon. Story 14. I was the youngest of 5 children, and my parents have let slip over the years that they did not at all intend to have me. My dad had gotten a vasectomy, but they later found out that by the time he had it done, my mom was already pregnant with me. Everyone always talks about the youngest being the favorite, but that was definitely not the case with me. By the time I came around, my parents had already checked out, so to speak, and although I got away with a lot, it was because they were too busy to care rather than because I was the favorite. As a result, I never got very close to my parents. I was always heartbroken as a child that my parents never took an active role in my school events. My dad had always been working, and my mom started medical school and later became a doctor shortly after I was born. Even in high school, when some of my grades were slipping, my parents honestly did not care. When I eventually got married and moved out of state, I would hear about how my parents were constantly visiting my siblings, talking with them over Skype at least once a week and so on, but my parents never called, visited, or really even tried to engage with us. It made our time living away from all of my relatives really, really hard and lonely. I honestly do not know what would have been different if I had not been born so late in my parents' lives, but my whole life, I never felt like I was a priority, and that really, really hurts. Story 15. Yeah, I had to pay for everything. I spent all my high school graduation money on a new laptop for college. I had no problem with it at the time until I found out 4 years later that my parents had bought my sister a brand new MacBook. I still did not think it was that big of a deal until they lied about it to my face at the dinner table. I paid rent and lived in crappy apartments all through college. She started college a few months after I graduated, and all of a sudden they were paying for her rent at one of the more expensive apartment complexes around. The kicker is that, by any metric you want to use, I am the more successful child, better in academics, fairly successful in sports, and I have a great career doing a job I absolutely love, straight out of college. Story 16. I am the youngest of 3 daughters and also have a younger brother. It is pretty obvious that I have a few hang-ups about it. It is not like I was the hated one, I just knew I was treated differently, in order of who was liked. For my dad, it was sister 1, sister 2, me, little brother. I will come back to this. For my mom, it was brother, me, sister 2, sister 1 growing up, but it became brother, sister 1, me, sister 2, after sister 1 had children. My dad is Indian and the eldest male in his family, son of an eldest brother, and my brother was hugely regarded because of it. My brother would get special treatment when we visited India, and it would make me so angry. He would get presents on my birthday, but I would get tiny little trinkets compared to his remote control car. Initially, my brother became Dad's favorite, but they were too similar in personality and clashed, and my brother became my dad's least favorite. I became quite envious of the special treatment and tried to get more attention. My mom basically liked us as much as she pitied us. She pitied my brother for being Dad's least favorite, and started liking my eldest sister more when she had grandchildren. I have known it was a pity thing for a long time, and that irked me because I did not feel pitiful. For me, it made me work really, really hard to seek approval. I almost have a PhD in genetics, but I still feel like that does not matter because I am not as smart as my eldest sister, who is very smart and owns 2 cafes but tells me she is proud of me all the time. It makes me scared to change my life plan from what they expect of me because I crave that approval. It is really hard for my husband, who is the eldest and obviously his mother's favorite, though he did not realize it, to understand. My second sister is in a similar boat as me, nobody's favorite, and has gone the opposite way. She is a really passionate and emotional person, but when it comes to our family, she just shows the bare minimum of emotion. She does not talk to my parents much and sat deadpan at my wedding. We are good friends. She is just not emotional with me like she is with other friends. the weirdest place it has manifested is that I am more empathetic to my younger niece than the elder niece, my sisters, because I feel like the elder gets more attention. It is almost like I favor her because she will one day know how I felt. And that is wrong. I am not a parent, but it somewhat makes me understand how parents deal with favoritism. Story 17. As a child, I wasn't the least favorite of four, but we damn sure knew who the favorite was. He could do no wrong, and still to this day, in my mother's eyes, he has to be treated like a king even when he was wrong. I was heinously jealous as a kid when she would pour hundreds of dollars into his hobby, while I could barely get her to attend one of my competitions. He received all the attention she could spare, while everyone else dealt with her mood swings and yelling. If I was close to accomplishing something he hadn't, he would throw fits. I was made to hold myself back in school so I would not advance beyond his grade. I would have been called first at high school graduation had I not held back, and his temper tantrum over it was pathetic. He had already cheated off of me in 2 classes we had together. There was no way Mom would have let that happen to her poor baby boy, though. But tables have turned now, bish. All that coddling turned him into a freeloading jerk. He showed up on my parents' doorstep after 8 years of just messing around in college, jobless. To top that off, he brought his vicious dog into their home, uninvited, and it mauled my mother's sweet pit. Bull just before the holiday. Now I'm the successful one, who still respects my parents and gives them any help I can, whether money, errands, or time. He sat and sulked upstairs as we made Thanksgiving dinner. I arrived early to bake and play with the little ones. Mom didn't say it to my face, but one of our family friends told me that after I went home, she had stood up for me against my brother. That's how you know I'm winning. Story 18. This is a whole long thing, but I'll keep it short. I didn't realize that my little brother was my dad's favorite until this past year. I'm 22 now. But yeah, someone said it, and I can see it all clearly. I used to get high B's when I was in grade school, and my father would yell at me for not getting an A while my brother would get D's and C's with no repercussions. I had to find rides for anything I wanted, whether it was hanging out with friends, going to work, coming home from work, or going to college. Wouldn't take me to get my permit because he didn't want his insurance to go up, so I had to wait until I was 18. If my brother wanted to go anywhere, my dad would bend over backwards for him and even paid for everything so he could start driving. I had to work for everything I owned. I saved up $700 and bought a car from a buddy, still owed $700 more, while my dad bought my brother a nice, well-kept Monte Carlo and even rebuilt it for him. Meanwhile, I had constant issues with mine. I don't know. I haven't really talked about it. It's tough seeing it now. It's kind of sad to look back and realize how much I would do to gain approval from my father and yet go nowhere. Story 19. When I was younger, it made me try harder to be better at everything. Still, it didn't work. I got great grades, had a grocery store job where I'd been promoted a couple of times and was paying for my own stuff, while my older brother just mooched and was lazy. When I was 17, I had just gotten accepted to a couple of schools and received word that I had earned a few entrance scholarships and some merit scholarships. I was talking about it at work when a manager made a comment like, "Your parents must be so proud of your accomplishments." I kind of replied with a snort and said, "You'd think so, right?" That didn't sit well with him. He didn't tear a strip off them or anything, but he pulled me aside a little later and was very serious. He said that if my parents weren't impressed with everything I had accomplished at 17 and how driven I was for my future, it was their issue, and that he would be super proud if he had a kid who turned out like me. It was a little thing, but that moment had a huge impact on me. And it's corny, but it was kind of like the clouds parted, and I had the realization that I was great, and my parents were the ones with issues. It's been almost 13 years since then, and my parents still think my brother is the best thing ever, but it doesn't bother me much anymore, mostly thanks to my old manager, Ralph. Story 20. My sister was older and favored. The freedoms granted to her, but not to me, were always under the guise of, "You'll have these same freedoms when you're older." This was fine at first, but the logic crumbled when I would reach the age my sister had been when granted certain freedoms and still wouldn't get them. She's older, that's why? No. She was given these freedoms at 15, and now that I'm 15, I should have them too. The logic was lost on my parents. All said, my parents are still wonderful, but they were blind to the bias. One year, first world problem warning, I broke. For her birthday, she got tickets to 2 Hanson concerts, her favorite band. That same year, I got a Game Boy game. I didn't want to sound unappreciative, but I went off a little in the following days. It was mostly passive-aggressive at first, but ultimately I pulled the, "You clearly love her more than me, I'm an afterthought." I mostly forgot about it afterward, but it resonated with my parents for sure. Maybe 2 months later, my dad surprised me with tickets to see Weird Al Yankovic. I was very happy until my mom dropped the, "See, we don't love your sister more than you." which soured the gesture. Still, my childhood was fantastic, and even though I'm typing a lot here, it was small potatoes. So, how did it affect me? Well, my sister came home pregnant at 22, and her newly formed family became the focal point of my immediate family. This turned out to be a blessing. I am a pretty independent guy, and as an adult, I found that the freedoms granted to me by not being at the center of my family's concerns are a huge benefit to my lifestyle. I'm free to do what I want, and there are no pressures to live a life on my parents' terms. No pressure to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. As long as I'm happy, they're happy. We've grown super close because of this. So yeah, it worked out. Story 21. It is happening to my half-sister. It's pretty blatant that my father favors my younger half-sister. They are 11 and 6, respectively. Not in the sense that he just gives more attention to the smaller one because, well, that's what you do. No. Every time the younger one annoys the older one, hurts her, or whatever, he almost systematically either blames the older one or doesn't care at all. You don't even want to know what happens when it's the other way around. When he reacts, it never goes beyond a mildly concerned, "Hey, that's not cool." It's so blatant that even my stepmother sees it. So, of course, my older half-sister is pissed, which means she is constantly fighting my father and becomes increasingly jealous. That, in turn, causes my father to treat her as you can expect. Not badly, like insulting her or anything, but he constantly seems on edge when they are together and tends to get more easily angry with her over nothing, without noticing the entire pattern. That means that every time I go to my father's home, there is a chance of a toxic atmosphere there. On the other hand, my older half-sister seems to appreciate me much more because I am much more impartial when it comes to the younger one's behavior. Story 22. I was very confused. I wasn't a bad kid, but I was treated as one. The one who actually was bad was given free rein to bully me because I deserved it. The other kids were rewarded for passing in school. I was screamed at if I wasn't top of the class, but received no recognition otherwise, and I was scowled at if anyone gave me any kind of praise for it. Teachers were even threatened. I was extremely conscientious and self-conscious, and became very uncertain. If I had a question, it was never answered. I was on my own. I was given no guidance. I floundered. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. I had clear gifts and no understanding of what to do with them. Nothing I did seemed to mean anything, but my future husband found me and loved me. He loved everything about me. He couldn't understand why I couldn't see my own worth, and he tried very hard to make me see it. He damned my parents for being a-holes whenever I would break down. He is a good man who always wanted the best for me, even if he couldn't make it happen. I can honestly say that I am happy now. I know that I probably could have really done something with my life, made money, been important somehow, with a different upbringing. But honestly, I have to say that I couldn't see myself happier. My husband still loves me after 37 years of marriage and tells me every single day. And we have adult children whom we love and who love us back. Having a career and more money wouldn't have made that more possible, and maybe even less so. I don't think I would have had the energy to be a good wife and mother, and put everything into a separate career too, given my physical issues. Story 23. Oldest kid, unintentional pregnancy, and autistic, though undiagnosed until I was in my 20s, to boot. Then my sister was born with moderate disabilities and required all the attention. So I was sort of forgotten. They still fed me and all that, but any sort of praise or encouragement was completely foreign to me outside of school. Then my brother came along, normal and perfect, and became the favorite. The weirdo and the mentally challenged one were never going to amount to anything, so we've got to put our eggs in the basket that's not broken, yeah? The golden boy could do no wrong. He falls and bangs his head. Why weren't you watching him? I was getting chewed out by you, Mom. That's why. He almost strangled himself with the strap on a plastic samurai sword. Where were you? I was mowing the front. Yard like you told me to. I can't help with yard work and babysit at the same time. Never mind all the extra nice stuff he got. The encouragement, the praise, the privileges of going to see friends or join activities. Goldie finally messed up and married a horrid woman right out of college. Nasty, drunken gold digger with an unhealthy relationship with her father. It was almost worth the hell she put me through, as a test run, apparently, to see her do it to my parents as well. It may be petty, but I felt they deserved it after doting on him his whole life. Story 24. I am the forgotten middle child. My parents were always busy with all my other siblings for a good 7 years. They simply did not care. They did nothing when I told them about being bullied relentlessly. They did nothing when I explained that the teachers were turning a blind eye and even singling me out. I developed severe depression, and my entire personality changed. I became very withdrawn and would isolate myself in my room or at my friend Nico's house. He knew something was wrong when I would get tears in my eyes because his parents were so incredible. My parents would belittle me for never being around, and when I was, they would make fun of me. They would forget to shop for my Christmas presents while getting dozens for everyone else. My dad realized how incredibly awful he had been to me when I said I wanted to study something in arts or entertainment at university. He saw that he did not even know me. It took another few months and a letter that only he has seen to truly start turning things around. He is here for me now, which is better than never, but I am still profoundly affected by the past. Story 25. I am the favorite. So this is from my perspective. I am the only boy among 4 siblings. I did not get in trouble growing up, earned good grades, did above average in sports, am now in doctoral school, married, one sister divorced, the other 2 unmarried, and generally, I'm treated better. What I will say is that all of my sisters have behaved poorly growing up and afterward, and have done things that hurt my parents. Not as much my middle sister, but definitely the other 2. I have a good relationship with all of them and love them all, but I can tell there is a feeling of inadequacy that they share, particularly 2 of them. Comments are sometimes made about how we cannot all be perfect like me, especially if I offer them advice. I never did anything to throw my success in their faces, mostly just kept to myself. But it still seems to hurt them to know my parents favor me. They are proud of what I have accomplished and like sharing it, perhaps too much at times. Another thing I have noticed is that 2 of my sisters feel like they will never measure up to me. Doing the things I have done seems unachievable to them. I try to encourage them to aim high and set goals, but they are just uninterested. The lack of confidence or drive really shows. I hope this helps answer the question. Story 26. I have a half-sister who was the clear favorite, though always for reasons I understood. She was 8 years younger than me. My mom had died when I was too young to remember, and her mom had adopted me at around 6 so that she could be with my dad. I was just a constant reminder of the woman who had come before her. I was physically and emotionally abused growing up. I developed an any attention is good attention attitude between about 7 and 13. And then from 14 to 18, I did everything I could to be left alone, including running away to live primarily at a friend's house at 15. I made sure early on that my little sister was not abused like I was. I would take the fall for things she did, and when she was caught in the act, I would step in to protect her from any physical harm. When it came time for college, I paid my own way because my parents said they did not have the money. She ended up going to a private school that cost $50,000 a year. I've never been unemployed since I was 14. I have an extremely strong work ethic, and my loyalty to friends is probably to a fault. I also tend to let things roll off my back, also to a fault. I am very calm in stressful situations, to the point that it often annoys those I am working with, who tend to get more stressed in the same circumstances. Finally, I am very averse to any family interactions that are not of my own choosing. It is pretty much the only time I get anxiety, and I get it badly before family dinners with in-laws or a friend's family. It is an atmosphere that makes me feel uncomfortable and also difficult to watch. The good relationships that other people have with their parents. My sister has graduated college, still lives at home, and worked a part-time summer job that my parents got her for the last 2 years of school. We do not talk much anymore, ever since she started talking like her mom when I had tried. To help her avoid the mistakes I made with college, she said something along the lines of not wanting to take advice from a failure like me. I still feel bad for her. Anytime she has faced adversity, her parents have been there to pick her back up or catch her before she could fall. I have failed many things in my life and fought to overcome all of them. I do not know what she will do when they are not there, and she faces her first real difficulty in life. Sorry for the long rant. This is the first time I have written these thoughts down, and they just keep trying to come out. Story 27. My half-sister was the golden child, despite truancy, nearly setting her school on fire, terrible grades, drugs, and everything else. I was pretty much the opposite, but my mother favored her because they went through a lot together when my mom left her then husband. It was bad to the extent that she would get hundreds of dollars in new clothes every school year while I got none because the clothes you have are fine. I did not even get her hand-me-downs. She had a huge, lavish graduation party while my mom did not even send out graduation announcements for me. If I had a hobby I was interested in, she would claim it was her hobby, and my mom would pour so much money into it for her, even though she was not actually interested in it. This led me to never pursuing any interests, because if she caught on, she would take it over. Now I have no idea what my interests are. This started when I was maybe 7, so that was years of me pretending I did not have any interest at all. If she said I did something, I was immediately punished for it. She would make up the most ridiculous crap with no proof, just so I would get me in trouble, all while blatantly stealing my stuff. There is so much more, but that is all the grievances I care to air out right now. How did it affect me? I have huge self-esteem issues. I'm always paranoid about people thinking I am lying. I do not ever really stand up for myself. I put up with awful situations because I do not think I deserve better. And I am so concerned with other people's opinions. I will never have more than one child because I am absolutely terrified of making one think I love the other more. I know how that can mess someone up. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.